Well, welcome to SPED Homeschool Conversations, and thank you for joining us on our live Facebook show. And also for those of you who are joining us via our recorded session, either on Facebook or on YouTube or on our podcast. Tonight, our special guest is Melanie Wilson, and if you don't know who she already is, you're going to get to know her tonight and the many hats that she wears in the homeschooling community. So welcome, Melanie. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I am too. And thank you for joining us and agreeing to talk tonight on how not to lose your homeschool identity, because that is a major thing that we do. And on your website, which you call, it's psychowith6.com, because you are a Christian psychologist turned homeschool mom of 6, so it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
You say that you are a reluctant homeschooler, and I think a lot of our parents who started homeschooling, especially with special needs children, feel like this wasn't something that they wanted to do. It was something that was kind of just dumped in their lives. And even though it is, they tend to, we all dive in, and we dive in sometimes too much, and we lose our identity in that process. So I was hoping maybe as we started out this evening, you could kind of talk us through your story and how you moved from being a reluctant homeschooler to embracing it. And then we'll go into more of what you're going to tell us about how not to lose ourselves in the middle of all of that.
Yeah, no problem. So I was planning on working part-time as a clinical psychologist in a Christian practice, and I started off doing that. And then when I had my son, I found that he was getting chronic ear infections. And every time I took him to the doctor, my pediatrician said, it's because he's in daycare. Well, he was only in daycare part-time, and it was a great daycare. And I never even considered that that could be something that would make working very difficult for me, but it did. And I just had to admit, I'm going to have to stay home. And for a time, I worked just a couple of evenings a week, and that was, enough to kind of keep me in it. But then when I had, I don't remember exactly how old my son was, but I know I had 2 kids at the time. The thought came to my mind that I should homeschool. Well, I thought that was ridiculous. I had no interest in homeschooling. I did know something about it. I had a relative who homeschooled. I had a friend who was planning on homeschooling. My kids were young at the time. So I decided to read up on it when I found myself in a Christian bookstore and I saw this book on homeschooling, and I thought, well, that's very impressive, but I don't want to do that.
I was in the same boat. I understand.
Okay. So I took it to my husband, who is off the charts extroverted. And I thought, he is going to shoot this idea down and I will be, free and clear.
Right.
So I told him about the idea one night. I just said, I've been thinking about, homeschooling. And he said, that's a great idea. And I just thought, I don't want to do it. And I just continued to kind of wrestle with God over the whole issue, because I knew he had called me to be a writer and a speaker. That's what I wanted to do even when I was in graduate school. I didn't want to be a full-time therapist. That wasn't what I really loved. And finally, I realized that if God was calling me to homeschool, write, and speak, it was his responsibility to make that work. I didn't see how that was going to work, but obviously it has. And what's even more surprising for me is not just that I've been able, by his grace, to do all 3 of those things, but that of those things, writing and speaking and homeschooling, if I had to only keep one of those things in my life, it would be homeschooling with no problem at all. It has been that fulfilling to me, that much of a blessing. It just meets so many needs, even needs that I didn't know that I had. And God knew that I would love it and that it would bless my family tremendously. But,
Yeah.
and this is how I'm going to transition for you, okay?
Okay.
but I have had to be very focused on taking care of who I am as a person, apart from being a mother and a homeschool educator, you know? So I think I am excited to talk with you about that because it's a topic that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah. I think it's pretty easy to get lost in all of that, and also to just not be able to quantify. Like, I mean, you're looking at it after many years, and I'm sure when you first started, that was not your perspective.
Right.
But hopefully we can share that from the back end, you know, of having homeschooled and kind of see it through the rearview mirror a little better. Just how important all of those components are. And like you said, you know, you wanted to be a writer and speaker. I'm sure when you started, you weren't thinking you were going to be a writer and speaker about homeschooling.
No.
and about all of those things, but yet that was God's purpose in all of that.
It was.
And, you know, he had that identity in you, but, you know, to be willing to let it change too is, I think, something that's important.
Yeah. You know, initially I had to just be obedient. And I decided to start by homeschooling preschool because my oldest was only 3. But I thought, you know, that's a good place to start. And I thought, you know, this will be a piece of cake. How hard can this be? It's a 3-year-old, it's preschool. And it turned out that it was incredibly hard. It was a disaster for me. So it wasn't like I went, okay, God, that's great. I'll homeschool now. And then everything was perfect. Far from it. It showed me all of my weaknesses, my lack of patience and my disorganization. And, you know, today, so many people who don't homeschool say, I wouldn't have the patience to homeschool. I'm not organized enough to homeschool. And I just laugh because I was neither of those things. And homeschooling is what God used to build those character traits in me. So, you know, it doesn't always mean when we start off doing something and it doesn't go well, that's not God's plan for us, you know?
Oh, that's a very, very good point. Yeah, totally agree with that. And, you know, you have to embrace it. And it seems like in your life, you really have. You've embraced what God had in front of you. And even though it wasn't easy. And I know you quote, one of your quotes is that homeschooling is a killjoy.
Yeah, well, actually, Kendra and Andy Fletcher said on their podcast that homeschooling can be a buzzkill. And
exactly.
So I was kind of reflecting that, and it absolutely can be. It's, you know, my plan, honestly, was, you know, after I decided to stay home, my plan was to put my kids in school, but not go back to work full time right away so that I could just do some fun things. You know, I wanted to play tennis and go out for lunch and, you know, just all these like fun kind of self-centered things. And then I couldn't do that because I was homeschooling, or at least I thought that I couldn't. So we're gonna get to that. But yeah, I mean, I think many people who are new to homeschooling have. Sorry about the kind of talking in the background there.
That's okay.
Hey Ben, can you tell Andy to please be quiet? Thank you. You know. Now they're really interrupting me. Okay, so I think, you know, you can kind of be on the outside looking in and thinking that, you know, it just looks so idyllic. It's just so peaceful. You know, it's kind of like I grew up on a farm. And so, you know, people today are just so enamored with the, you know, the homesteading kind of lifestyle and living on a farm. And I'm like, what? That's no. I don't want to do that because I know how much work goes into living on a farm. And we just lived on a small acreage, but we had, you know, fields, we had all kinds of animals, and there was so much work that had to be done. And homeschooling is really the same. There are so many blessings, so many blessings to it. It is a lifestyle that my family treasures. It's wonderful, but it's also hard work. And if you don't know that going in, I think you can be very discouraged and just want to give up and think, here's the other thing, thinking that your kids are going to be as excited about all of your plans as you are.
So
right?
true. So true. Yes. Yeah. Because you have everything laid out and you planned all summer long, and this is going to be the greatest year ever. And no, they don't want to do any of it.
Right. When I met one of my friends who was a newer homeschooling mom at the time, she said, my son isn't going along with any of my plans. And I just laughed. And it's because our plans are so overblown, so much more detailed and complicated than any reasonable child would ever want to go along with. I mean, kids are just being normal when they object to our crazy, big detailed plans.
I completely agree.
Yes.
I kind of gave up with over planning because I think I got more disappointed when I overplanned than when I just said, you know what, we're just going to take it as it goes, plan 1 week at a time, because I don't know how far we're going to get. And I don't want to be disappointing myself in the process of doing that too.
That's an excellent approach. And I think also just recognizing that kids complain. Kids complain about work, just like adults complain about work. And it doesn't matter what you call it or how you dress it up. It all comes down to you're still asking them to do work. And so they're going to gripe sometimes, and that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong at all.
And you can't take it personally because it isn't meant from their perspective to be personal to you. No. And that's why I think when we delve and we dive ourselves into this identity as homeschool mom, it can seem like an attack on our own personality too. And so, so what suggestions do you have for parents on how to kind of get outside that box of, I'm not just this job, and I think unfortunately in our society, we classify ourselves by what we do instead of who we are. So what can we do to get out of that mentality and to really accept the reality?
Well, I think first of all, to recognize that you bring all these gifts and talents that God has given you as a unique individual to the homeschooling arena in your life. And He intends for you to use them. It is amazing how many talents and interests and passions that we have, whether we're the mom or the dad, can be brought to bear to the homeschooling world. And it's so exciting. So, I mean, really all of a sudden, this example just popped into my head of my husband. My husband is a 3rd degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. And once I had him come in and kind of teach the boys and the dads some self-defense moves. And I just loved that. I mean, he felt great about himself. You could tell, and everyone was enjoying it. And that's what homeschooling, I think, is all about, that we all get to enjoy one another's talents and interests and passions. And we don't have to be certified. My husband did not have to be certified to teach his jiu-jitsu moves to my kids and my friends' kids. And the same with me. I'm not a certified teacher, but I absolutely love public speaking, and I love teaching kids how to be better speakers. I love teaching them how to be better writers as well. But I don't have the degree to do that. But homeschooling allows me to do that. I have friends who are artists and crafters, seamstresses, they are engineers, and all of those things, all of those gifts they use to bless homeschoolers, or even just, a woman who just has the gift and passion for hospitality, invited all these girls and their mothers into her home for a Valentine's luncheon. I mean, it was extraordinary. And,
Wow.
It's just something that, if you were working full time in another profession, you wouldn't have time to indulge those hobbies and passions. So be open to what God is doing in you and how he might use your talents and education and interests in homeschooling. You may be very surprised. I know I definitely was. So that's one way.
That's such a good point, because and it's interesting too, as you talk to people, that have different backgrounds. I mean, we interviewed a family at one point, and she had a background in science, and a lot of their homeschool was around science because that was her interest, and her kids loved it. And
Yes.
God doesn't give you your gifts because your kids are going to hate them. They actually usually embrace them.
Yeah.
And so,
he gives us those gifts to be a blessing. We're not supposed to keep them to ourselves. We're supposed to use them to help people. And homeschooling is a great arena for doing that. And, obviously with my passion for speaking and writing, it's been incredible how I've been able to do that. And here's the other thing. I think as we homeschool, we discover new passions and talents than we even were aware of. So before I started homeschooling, I thought, well, I'm a psychologist. That's what I am. That's what I do. That's what I've studied to do. So that's my gift. That's my education. And what I learned is that my true passion and my true calling in my life is not being a psychologist, but a teacher. That is what I love more than anything. And that connects everything else that I've enjoyed doing in my life. So, I mean, really being a therapist, being a psychologist is being a teacher. You're teaching people how to address issues that they're struggling with. And I just discovered that more than anything else, I love to teach. But
that's awesome.
What if you're not crazy about teaching? I know some homeschoolers who are not crazy about it. If you're crazy about your kids, you can be an amazing homeschooler, because I tell people it's like being a general contractor for your child's education. So, maybe science labs, they're not your thing. I have a friend who was just here today teaching my kids science labs. She does all the dissections, all the science experiments.
Amen.
I don't have to do it. It's awesome. And I teach her kids writing and speaking and literature. So it's a great deal. And there are so many learning centers now. If there's something that you just don't love about homeschooling, you can contract that out and it can work. But the rest of the time, you're enjoying that close family relationship with your kids. And I mean, I just cannot say enough about what that has meant to our family and the difference it has made in my kids' relationships.
Exactly.
I mean,
when they're young, you don't think about that because they're constantly fighting because they're with each other all the time. But now that they're adults, and I know you have kids that are adults too.
I do.
Sit and watch. My one son came home from college, and my boys sat and talked at the kitchen table for 2 hours. I mean, I never saw that would ever happen, but because they're each other's best friends.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. I don't think that's always going to be the case that you homeschool your kids all the way through, that they're going to be the best of friends. But I think it makes it so much more likely, because they really learn to enjoy one another.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about happiness, joy. What's the difference? How do we keep that? And is it something we find from our homeschooling? And I think you'll probably tell us no, that we shouldn't source it all from that.
Right. So I did a recent podcast episode called How to Be Happy in Homeschool Too. And, moms right away understood what I was talking about just from the title. In other words, homeschooling will not automatically make you happy. And unfortunately, some people think that it will, just like some people think, well, getting married will make me happy. Having a baby will make me happy. Having another baby will make me happy. Buying another set of homeschool curriculum will make me happy. No. Of course, happiness, I've heard it said that happiness is an inside job. We're each responsible for our own happiness. I think of happiness and joy as two different things. I think of joy technically as a fruit of the Spirit that is a gift that God gives us that I can have even in the midst of horrible, tragic even circumstances. It doesn't make sense to us as people. But happiness, I believe, is more of a fluctuating emotion that we can have more of, and we should seek more of it. And I discussed, I discussed in that podcast that I believe with my whole heart that what our husbands and our kids want from us more than anything else is our happiness, our happiness. They don't want us to be working so much to make them happy as they just want us to be happy. And if we don't take care of our own happiness, it can really cause destruction in our homes and in our lives. And I know families where this is the case, where mama isn't happy. And mama isn't happy because mama hasn't done anything for herself to make herself happy. She's waiting for circumstances or other people to make her happy. And that just won't work. It just won't.
No, it won't.
Yeah. And so the other thing I talk about is some of the things that I've done to make myself happy that I also call being selfish. I'm absolutely fine with being selfish because it will increase my happiness, which will make my family happier overall. So I don't mean, doing something immoral or going out and, spending thousands of dollars to make yourself happy, hurting other people, no. But so some things that I did when I had young children, and I kept having babies and I was exhausted and, it's so hard. It is so hard at that season of your homeschooling life when you have littles and toddlers and preschoolers who are destroying everything and keeping you up at night and have to be fed and changed and bathed and all those things. But I had, first of all, I was just thinking of another thing. I had a housekeeper who came in twice a month. And I felt a little bit guilty about it, but the housekeeper I had was actually a family member at the time. And she said, everyone I clean for is someone like you who has young kids at home. It's just very hard because I had several children who were not old enough to help me around the house. So, my husband agreed to spend that money, and it was a weight off of me. It made me happy. And I actually had a great time chatting with our family member who was cleaning the house for me too. So it was kind of served double duty.
You got some fellowship and you got
And it was great. And she was so encouraging to me. She's like, oh, I love your kids. They're wonderful. And then the next thing that I did also involved a family member. And that was I had our niece come in once a week and she would watch the kids for a few hours. And I would use that time any way that I wanted. Sometimes I would do shopping because I did not like taking all my small children to the store with me at all. I hated that. It was so stressful. Sometimes I would go out and she would come during the day, and my husband works out of our home. So I would go out and have a lunch date with my husband. And it was so little money for so much value.
Right.
Wonderful.
We had a homeschool girl that would come in and do the same for me, because you just need that sanity break. And I am somebody different than these children.
Right. And just getting away with your husband. I know it's hard. I do know that. And, I'm in an unusual circumstance with my husband working out of our home. I know moms whose husbands work the night shift and they're working the day shift. I mean, it is so challenging. So I'm not suggesting, easy peasy, just go out on a date. But anytime you can arrange to have a family member help you out so that you can just spend some time alone with your spouse, or to just do something for yourself that you enjoy. If you can trade that service with someone, it's just so worth it to do.
When we didn't have family members that could help much of the time, so we would often wait till the kids went to bed, and I would make a nice dinner late at night for just the two of us.
Yes.
And we didn't have to go out at all. We didn't spend any extra money, and we didn't need a babysitter. And it was wonderful. But you have to really think outside the box on how to do that, especially for special needs families. Finding even a caregiver is very difficult.
Very challenging. And, you might be able to arrange to trade, childcare with another special needs family who understands what issues you have in your home and isn't going to, be kind of freaked out by anything. They're going to know, okay, that's what it is. And, your kids will live for a few hours while you have some time.
Right.
So.
And you just never know. Those friends that have special needs of their kids may become your child's best friend. That's how it worked out.
That's
for
right.
us.
Really? Okay.
So even as adults, they still talk to each other. So it's a blessing. Definitely.
The other thing that I wanted just to mention briefly, because I struggled with this for a long time, and that is, so I had these young children, and I was homeschooling. But I really wanted to write and speak. I really wanted to do that. And I was so afraid that if I waited too long, that opportunities would pass me by. And it honestly kind of broke my heart when I would see like these, amazing speakers. And I would just think, I wish I could do that. I just had such a longing. And people who were authoring books when they were my age or even younger. And I thought, there isn't going to be time for me. My ship has sailed. And that was such a lie. I know it seems so funny, but that is what
I lived that same reality. So I'm there with you, because that was my passion too, was to speak, and not so much to write. God has just made me write. But I felt the same way.
Right. Well, what was so amazing to me is that God provided me with just the right amount of an outlet for that. I never advertised myself as a speaker, yet it just seemed like the perfect amount of speaking opportunities would come to me. And my husband was always so great in saying, yes, I would like for you to do that one, but this other one, not so much. Because it was all going to be on him. He was going to be taking care of all the kids by himself. And so I just really honored that. And he was great about it most of the time. And the other thing is that I had writing opportunities that were just the right amount also. And that helped me to feel like I was doing what I loved to do while homeschooling, while parenting. And it didn't make me feel guilty, because I wasn't just dumping my kids, my family, my homeschool. And I am not trying to suggest that moms who work and homeschool are doing that. But, for me, this was not putting food on the table. It was just something that I wanted to do.
It was filling a need inside. And, And you're right. It's those little things can fill that need, and they don't have to be huge. They don't have to take up a lot of time.
Right. Absolutely. And so I would just highly suggest that you pray and trust God to bring the right opportunities into your life. And if you see other people surpassing you, because this was a big one for me, you see other people who are blogging and they're, they've got so many page views and they've written these books or whatever it is, whatever you're passionate about. They started a business and they're making all this money. You have no idea what is happening inside their homes. You have no idea how much stress they're under. And God knows what we can each handle and when we can handle it. And I really wanted to take over a friend's radio program. She had a weekly radio program, and really it was both of our desire that I would take over that program. And I was really feeling like, oh, I just want to do it now. I just wanted to take this over. And I remember she said to me, imagine what your life will be like 5 years from now. And I just stopped and I thought, oh my goodness. I mean, add 5 years to your kids' ages and think about what a difference that will make in your life. It doesn't even really matter how old your kids are right now. And so I just stopped and I went, that is so true. And it's been more than 5 years since she said that to me. And, I'm in a different season now. Yeah. I can do a lot more than I was able to do then. But I don't regret that my focus was on my family and on my homeschool. Yeah.
And you have so much more things to talk and write about now too, because of all of that happened in the last 5 years. Isn't
that so true? Yes. Yeah. I mean, what was I going to write about? What was I going to write about? As a brand new mom, it's like, there's really not a whole lot.
Oh, God has taught me so many things. And I've realized that it's those things that you write about that God, I told people in the past, I said, don't ever tell God you want to be a speaker, because he's going to drag you through the mud to give you the best stories to give to others. And that it is so true.
So true.
They don't care if you stand up in front of them and say, well, I read this in a book, or this is what I learned in school. They want to know how you made it.
Right.
And what worked and how God miraculously worked in your life. And that's what gives them encouragement.
Right. So, God's timing is perfect. And it's so hard to trust that. I'm the first one to admit that, but he is trustworthy.
He is.
And he has a plan for you and your family. I've seen my sister-in-law go through life. She's not a homeschooling mom, but I've seen her go through life with her special needs son and just all the different stages. But God has been faithful in each of those stages of her life, despite their fears and worries over what was going to happen. And she's been a great source of support for me to say to other moms with kids with special needs, talk to my sister-in-law and he will tell you it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. I know when I was doing consulting for both Minnesota and Texas as their special needs consultant, just sharing my story with those parents, you could just hear the anxiety level go down and then say, okay, I think I can do this, because, being on the other side, I can tell them I had no idea what was going to happen in the next year, but God did. And if I rested in that, if I followed where his peace was, that's all I needed.
That's right. And I don't think, I keep reminding myself of this because it keeps coming up. I don't think God ever wants us to feel like we can handle things. That's not where he wants us, because he always wants us to be dependent on him. And he'll use whatever he has to keep us in the place of dependence. So
I love that.
I love, someone I heard was just so funny saying, God, that saying that isn't even in the Bible, that God won't give you more than I can handle. But the person said, okay, God, I'm weak.
Exactly.
Really weak. So don't give me very much.
Right. Or help me in my unbelief. That's a good one too.
Wow, for sure. Yeah.
So true. So there were some other things that you delved into, and you talk about, hobbies. And
yes.
So
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. So
yes. So keep going.
No, I was just going to say, encourage our moms to delve into those things.
Oh, I will. Hobbies have been clinically shown to improve our mood and our health. And so we're really just taking care of ourselves when we take time for hobbies. And, I said something in that podcast that really resonated with moms, and I just want to kind of repeat it. I would love for you to listen to the podcast, but in case you don't.
Listen to it. Yep, and then I'll put the link in the...
Peggy, I'm just saying, if you don't have time to listen to the podcast, then I will give you that little pointer. I just said, we would never race a thoroughbred horse without giving that horse time to rest. That would be like abusive, right? But we expect ourselves as homeschooling moms to just work and work and work and race and race and race through life without a rest time to be even cared for. These horses are cared for. And, sometimes we have to do our own self-care. We have little ones. We have a husband who's maybe, working really hard like we are. So I think hobbies are an excellent way of doing that. I think sometimes people kind of look at me like, okay, so you have 6 kids, you homeschool, you are running a business essentially. So why would you take time for hobbies? How could you possibly squeeze those in?
Right.
I just do. I just do. And I don't feel guilty about that. I play tennis once a week. I play with other women, and it's an hour and a half. I mean, it's a little bit more than that with travel time, but I don't think that's too much. Right. And I love it. And the other thing that I do on most weeks, I scrapbook with a friend, and I do take my daughter with me because she enjoys that. But even if my daughter didn't enjoy it, I would still do it because I need it. I get together with my friend and we chat. I talk to her about everything that's going on with me. We share our pictures as we're scrapbooking, and it's so great. I mean, it's how I am able to keep doing what I do without just burning out,
Yep, you need that rest. I mean, God tells us we need that rest. And for some of us, it's more, hobbyish, like oriented. For me, I lead a Bible study, and a lot of people look at me and say that's work, but for me, it's so much release. I'm a precepts leader, and so I lead precepts. And as a co-teacher, I don't lead the whole thing, and we go out for lunch afterwards. So it's basically my Wednesdays. I take that whole day to be me, and not anything else. And that is really important, and your hobby can look so different, but it's just whatever feeds you. And, and, but like you said, we need to be ourselves, and we need to give a lot ourselves and not feel guilty about that.
Right. And I loved what you said there, because it was obvious that, what renews you is, spending time with other women too. And I think that is so important. And I think sometimes homeschooling moms feel like, well, I can't possibly take the time to do that. I'm needed at home. Like, our husbands respect what we do so much more when we let them take over for a while.
Exactly.
And they don't like it at first, but I think they grow to, they grow to like it. They grow to appreciate us, and our kids and our husband grow closer through doing that. And we just need to be able to talk with other women. We just need it.
We do.
Even if you're an extrovert, an introvert rather, I think you need that time to be able to get together and just kind of let your hair down. And those friends of yours will remind you who you really are. Because they're not going to treat you like you're just a mom. They're going to treat you like the unique individual that you are.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And you have a great venue on Facebook for this. It's called Homeschool Scopes. And you can find that group on Facebook by just looking up Homeschool Scopes. And so do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So Homeschool Scopes started when Periscope became the big social platform. It's declined in popularity since then, but it introduced the whole notion of using live video, like what we're doing right now, to connect people. And I thought this will be a fantastic way for homeschoolers to connect, to share information. We can look at curriculum together. We can, ask questions of one another with homeschooling issues that we have. And of course, we can build friendships. And it has far exceeded any expectations that I had for it. Homeschoolscopes.tv is the best group.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I
wish I could spend more time on there.
That's okay. That is okay. I absolutely adore the women in there. They have become my very best friends. They're they are so wise. They are so loving and encouraging. And I have seen homeschooling moms who have lost their identity come into that group and find themselves again. We help them to see who they really are, which is an amazing, talented, loving woman. And it's just awesome to see them really kind of blossom in the group. So we would love to have you join us. Even if you aren't willing to do live video, we would still love to get to know you.
Exactly. And after watching them for a while, you might be encouraged to actually do one. And it's not as scary as you think.
No.
Yeah. And it's so real too. I mean, everybody is just, I'm at the park or I'm in my car and I'm going to make a video. So it's a safe place because it's a closed group and you're not like broadcasting to all the world. So.
No, definitely not. And we are a no drama group too. That is so important to me because so many groups are just very divisive, and you will not find that in our group.
Definitely. Yeah. Down to earth, wonderful, and very encouraging.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and Jill, she said that.
Yes. I know.
I love it. Jill is now part of our team. I don't know if you know that. She joined the SPED Homeschool team. So we are so fortunate. Yeah, definitely. Well, I know another thing that,
Jill is a great role model. She is finding her way to do what she feels called to do in addition to homeschooling her kids. And it's always a journey. We're constantly making adjustments, right? But she's a great person to get to know.
Yeah, definitely. And it is so true. I mean, we think we're going in one direction, but we can't be so set and focused on where we see our sights as to where God is taking us, because it may be completely different. I don't know if you know part of my story, but we moved for 5 years. God picked us up out of the city and dropped us on a farm. So you talk about living on a farm. I did it for 5 years, and it was all God's plan because I never had any ambition to ever live in the country. Wow. But I was raising my own food, milking my own cow, making cheese. And I learned a lot. Yes. And I was very thankful when God said, "You're done."
I bet. I can see that.
But I had embraced it. We had foster kids. We had an exchange. I had 7 kids at one time. And I thought, oh, this is my life. You tend to think so much in the moment that this is reality for eternity. And it really isn't. It's just what this season has brought.
Yes.
And you can't allow yourself to say, well, my fate is sealed because this is where I'm at today. And so yeah, that's
so true. and along with that, we're also not one thing. I see a lot of people trying to find their calling. It's like, well, we have many callings though.
Exactly.
We're multifaceted people. And we don't have to, worry that we just need to pick one thing, not two.
No.
But Right.
I wrote a devotional for our,
to do that.
yeah. I wrote a devotional for our team, which I do every week.
Okay.
And it was on your giftings and your calling, basically, and your purpose. And I think we tend to think that God's purpose for us is like a career. And it's not.
Right.
God's purpose is an obedient walk each day. And that obedient walk can take us anywhere. And
That's right.
it's just our testimony in the end. When he knows what it's going to look like altogether, but we just take it one step at a time.
Yeah, I love that. That's excellent.
So another thing that you were going to talk about is exercise, which I know is maybe not what everybody wants to hear about, but it's so important.
So important. There is a video on YouTube, and I've linked to it many times, that absolutely blew me away, because it's basically one of those whiteboard videos that are so impressive, because I'm not an artist, but where it's a doctor who's speaking, and he basically breaks down the multitude, like you can't even believe how many diseases and conditions, mental health conditions included, can be treated with exercise, prevented with exercise, and treated with exercise. It is incredible. It is the most powerful drug we have. And it is so sad to me how many people are suffering. They're having chronic pain, and they're depressed or anxious, and all these different things that can be at least improved with exercise.
But it's so hard to get over that hump of starting.
Right.
Because you are dealing with chronic pain, and you are dealing with all of these things.
True. I have been a faithful exerciser for, it's over 25 years for sure. I wasn't always crazy about it. For sure. But I married a guy who was crazy about it. that has made a huge difference in my life, because he's always saying to me and the kids, are you going to the gym? What what exercise are you doing? So, maybe you didn't marry an exerciser like I did, but if you want exercise in your life, I would say team up with someone who is a faithful exerciser.
Really good idea.
Yeah, I mean, it makes all the difference in the world. So if you have a friend who is faithfully walking in your neighborhood, or faithfully goes to the gym, go to the gym with her, walk with her, because you'll know that she's going to be there no matter what. And then she's going to say, where are you? Get over here.
Accountability. It helps a lot. Exactly.
A lot. Yeah. And then, the next thing I would say is to find something that you enjoy, or add something you enjoy to exercise to help you to want to do it. So, at various times in my life, I have been in classes because I liked the social interaction. I have taken a book to the gym and read when I was on the bike, and I only allowed myself to read that book when I was there at the gym. So that was very motivating. I have done so many different things. I love variety. So Tricia says her husband always pushes her to exercise, even though you've had chronic pain. Yeah, you just had to find something that worked for you.
You do, and you have to work through the pain. I know I had some therapeutic exercises I had to do, and it was extremely painful. I got thrown by a bull. That's a long story. But and my shoulder took years to heal, and but you push through it, and it has healed. But and I look at those exercises every morning. I say, I hate doing them, but I do them anyways because I know what I feel like afterwards. And just focus on that too. And I love what Tricia also said about, it sets a really good example for your kids. And if you can find a way, you had talked about in your podcast too about walking, and just just a simple walk. I mean, you don't have to make it super strenuous, and especially if you're my age or older, they say that strenuous exercise is not something you should be doing anyways. So, which I appreciate.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be just all out, super intense at all. It can be walking. It can be, I love these Christian Zumba exercise videos on YouTube. You can do those for free. You can do them with your kids.
Right.
You can use, I've done dance videos like on Nintendo. I've done that with kids. That's a great workout.
Yeah.
Obviously, like I said, I play tennis. That's it can be a good workout. Just find something that you can do, and then I think the next most important thing is just to do it until it's a habit. You won't feel like it necessarily for a while. It takes a while.
Yeah,
but
really does.
Then once you have the habit, you'll just do it.
Yeah. And I want everyone to know, if you have questions to ask Melanie, we're kind of wrapping up our time, but I know there's one last thing. So if you put them in the feed, we'll make sure we address those. Amy had said getting my kids active at the beginning of the day always helps for a more productive day. And really, it gets your brain moving too. And that's proven in science that the more active you are, the more your brain is able to focus. So
absolutely.
So definitely.
It's so good for kids with ADD. And for moms with ADD.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. It helps.
So definitely share your questions with us if you have any before we're wrapping up. But I know the last thing you really wanted to talk about was sleep, and how important that is. So important. For a few years, I told myself that I could function on 7 hours of sleep, and so that's all I got. And the truth was, I was just exhausted because I wasn't getting the sleep that I needed. Now, we all need a different amount of sleep. Exactly.
But for me, 8 hours was needed. And as soon as I made that shift of saying, I'm going to get 8 hours in if I possibly can, it made a world of difference in my energy and my attitude. Not crappy as much when I'm not tired. And it is just so essential. When I have talked with totally stressed out homeschooling moms, they're usually severely sleep deprived. Yeah. And they don't even think they have a right to say, I need you to watch these kids so I can take a nap, so I can get to bed earlier, whatever it is. It is so essential.
I love that. You have the right, you need to say I have the right for that, because you just, over time, it will, you're going to have health issues. You're going to have so many other things that are going to be related to that is going to take your time anyways.
That's right.
The time is going to be taken whether you give it on the front end or the back end.
Correct. That's when we sleep is when our immune system is performing those maintenance tasks on our body. It's like putting an area or like a room out of commission so that you can make repairs. And if we aren't putting our bodies out of commission so repairs can be made, things are going to start falling apart. They will. So it's critical. And if you can't get the hours of sleep that you need at night, then take naps. Take naps. Yeah. You can do this. You can make this work. Yeah. Your body, if you think you can't nap, just try to lay down. If you need it, it will take it. That's right. So I was gifted with the ability to nap. I can sleep with my kids running around me, but I know some people aren't. I nap. Yeah. If I need it, I can. I can give testimony though on the other side though. When we had 3 foster kids that all had special needs, I slept 2 hours a night, and I eventually suffered adrenal failure because of it. Oh my word. And it's taken me years to recover from that. And so yes, you just can't put yourself in that. Yeah. Yep. Tricia said power naps are amazing. They are. Yeah. It doesn't have to be long. It does not have to be long to make you feel so much better. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. 2 hours of sleep a night. I'm still reeling at that. It's like, woo.
I know. Well, and my normal is around 7. So
Okay.
that's about all I need. So,
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, like you said, it depends on the person. And so it's just the way it is. But
That's right.
yeah. Well, I just want to thank you for all that you shared with us. I want to make sure that everybody knows what your website is. So I'm going to put that up on our screen. And so that is, whoops. That did not copy. Just a second. That's my problem with using multiple computers. All right, but it is psychowith6.com.
Yeah.
And let's see, there we go. We can put it up on the screen. And so you can check that out. Right on your front page is the written article that includes everything that we just talked about too, and also the link to the podcast is on there also. Right. So, but if you want to check out more of Melanie's podcast, that is at homeschoolsanity.com. Mm-hmm. And I will copy that and put it up there also Yeah. And so how often do you have podcasts come up on there?
Yeah. So speaking of taking care of yourself, this year, at the beginning of the year, I decided to cut back to, I was doing weekly podcasts, but I cut back to every other week. And I'm just going to kind of see how things go, because I can always do weekly again anytime I would like to. But, sometimes you just have to cut something out. So that's what it was. But yes, so it's usually every other week.
Okay, great. Well, we have Anna just joined us, and she said she got here late, but she's going to watch the replay.
Yay.
It'll be I think it stays up for about a week, but it'll go up on YouTube and our podcast on Sunday. And then Amy added, if you can't sleep, then at least take time to rest. And, that goes back to what you were talking about before.
Yeah, just so important. And, as we're just wrapping this up, be an ambassador for what I have been talking about. Maybe you have these things down, like you are sleeping, you are exercising, you are taking time for yourself. Keep talking with other homeschooling moms about the need for this. We need to hold one another accountable for taking care of ourselves, because in doing that, we're caring for our families.
Yeah. And we're caring for our community too. And, as a homeschooling community, we get so much bad press. And the good stuff doesn't get publicized. But you need to be that one who publicizes what's going good, with your friends, with your family, with, your community, whether it's on Facebook, whether you meet up with a local group. But definitely, And I just love everything that you've shared, because it so needs to be said, but it's not said enough, I think. And because we always, when you talk homeschool, all of a sudden we talk curriculum, we talk, how to teach your kids, how to solve this problem. But what about mom? That's something we tend to forget about. And
So true. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. I'm so glad you were able to join us, and that you kind of went with the topic. I said, what do you think about this? And you said, yes.
I love that topic.
Yeah. So thank you. And make sure you do visit all of Melanie's resources on her website and her podcast, and also her Facebook groups. You've got the Psycho with 6 also as a Facebook page, right? And then you've got the Homeschool Scopes group too. Yes. So a lot of resources you can definitely draw from, just to get continued encouragement. And also make sure that you join us on our Facebook support group. We have a SPED Homeschool support group also, where we provide encouragement just for our homeschool families. So thank you, Melanie. And I'm going to sign off with just the ending comments for our show, but I just so appreciate all the time that you spent with us and all the wonderful advice you shared. So make sure that you join us next week. Our broadcast will be here again on Tuesday night at 8 Central Standard Time with Misty Phillip, who is going to be talking to us about encouragement for the special needs parent. And she's a mom, homeschooling mom of a special needs son. And so she's just going to give us some encouragement. She is a Bible teacher and Christian speaker who's going to just be encouraging your heart as a homeschool and special needs parent. But then also make sure you check out our resources at spedhomeschool.com and also on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page, which is right here where we're broadcasting. So thank you and have a great night, and we'll see you next week.